All right, we will now open the Estacada City Council. We'll do a roll call. Oh, actually, let's do Pledge of Allegiance first.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have roll call, please?
Counselor Hughes is absent. Counselor McElroy.
Here.
Counselor Metcalf.
Here.
Counselor Prokop. Here. Counselor Strobel.
Here.
Counselor Tenbush.
Here.
Mayor Drinkwine.
Here, thank you very much for that. And moving right along, we're gonna try to move this as fast as I possibly can. I know you all got people to go home too. And I appreciate you coming in tonight. So I will now open the public hearing. And I will now close the city council and open the public hearing. Do any members of the council wish to abstain or declare ex parte contact? No? Okay. Council will now hear from staff. We've already pretty much been over this, so I'm sure this won't be very long. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I can. So I did make some phone calls, talk to some people to try and gauge interest. I think the problem is the problem that's always been, which is we just don't have information. So when when people are like, how many accounts, like what's the, what are the receivables, all that, we don't have any of that info. I think that if this were a franchise purchase under the terms of our franchise agreement, we would have there's a lot of things we could do, but this is an asset purchase. So in talking over it with Melanie and some other people as well, just to get some feedback, I think that the cleanest way to do it is to terminate the franchise and then to amend the map on the Arrow franchise to include the Walker territory within the city. The more I think about it, the more I think we're not a party to this agreement. So why would we be involving ourselves in the negotiation? So I think that, and I know that we've been a little bit concerned about whether Arrow can provide the services. That's kind of for them to figure out. So whether they can get that with containers that are brought in, or whether they're buying the containers, or how they're servicing it, they're professionals, this is what they do. And they've got to figure it out. And if they don't perform, then we're going to have to send them a 30-day letter and go through that, which of course we don't want to do. But, and there's no reason to think that they can't manage this. So I think that that's probably the cleanest way for us to handle it, instead of getting into like a third party deal outside of the normal scope of our franchise agreement.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would, based on the non-compliance or Walker not being able to meet the requirements of that 30-day notice that we sent them. My recommendation along with that would be to revoke the franchise officially as of a certain date, and then to make a motion to expand the map for Arrow, and direct staff to coordinate that with the companies. The one thing I'm not sure of is the date, because if we do it on January 1st, that's pretty close. I mean, that's coming right up for our community members to know, but I'm not sure if Walker can continue to do it for another month, make it February 1st. I don't know if we should, I don't know how much of that we need to discuss here, or if they just need to direct staff to get that taken care of.
They bill on a 2-month cycle anyway. So the cleanest thing would be to have Arrow providing the services starting January 1. And we don't know as far as like the franchise fees that were owed for the last quarter of, I don't think we're going to be able to get that data. So we're going to have to figure out how to handle that, but that's something that can wait for another day.
Okay. All right. So you're pretty confident that this is smooth.
Yeah, I mean,
it is, and that we can do this.
We gave them the 30-day letter, the demand for information. We didn't receive any of that information. And I know they said they were billing, but we've heard from people that they aren't getting a bill. So, yeah.
You had any discussions with Arrow about this?
Melanie's had some conversations with Arrow.
And Josh is here this evening if, oh, and hello, Mark is here also. I don't know how much we need to get into the details on the date of the transition. If the council needs to manage that, Peter, or if they can direct staff to manage that with the,
I mean, if there's
Sure.
consensus that we close it down at the end of this month and just amend the map.
Yeah.
And we can do that. We can do that via, just your direction.
I think staff can handle that. I don't think we really need to get involved in that part of it.
Is that also agreeing to the 9 years then?
No, we wouldn't be addressing that.
Not on this particular.
We can look at that. We can look at that at a later date. That's really
So it's not stopping the transaction from happening?
no, they're private parties that are free to contract with each other. I mean, this is a sale of assets and, we would never normally be involved in an asset sale.
Okay. All right. I think, is that something, can we have Errol come up to the microphone just so I can ask a quick question before we move on? Is that okay?
is that
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Okay. Josh?
I know in the last meeting, Josh, so we had had a discussion about this being part of the deal that you know, how important is it that you find out right now? I mean, is this something that we should, we can hold off a little bit? I mean, knowing that we're going to go forward with it. I mean, is this something?
Yeah, and thanks for having me up again and thank the council for being here tonight on a holiday week. I know it's tough for everybody, but appreciate that on our end. You know, I think the 5-year extension component, like I kind of talked about last time, is important to us from an investment standpoint. In our franchise agreements, not only the city of Estacada, those are common language components of those agreements in order for us to depreciate assets, right? In this case, purchasing Walker's assets and continuing the franchise. As I also mentioned last time, in the actual agreement, there is the ability to ask and council to approve that 5-year extension, which would have been a couple of years ago. I actually looked back through some of my notes in meeting with Melanie and the previous city leadership about discussing that extension. We, as a company, chose to not push that at the time, given the challenges that Walker was going through at the moment, right? We didn't want to add anything further. I think the decision was made that we hold off on that 5-year extension piece, which I agreed with and trusted that we would get back to that. So that part is important for us to invest in Walker's assets and continue providing service in the city. That being said, if there's commitment from the council and, you know, a discussion point around that extension, certainly, you know, we want to move forward. That, as I mentioned, that extension is important to us for us, you know, that kind of investment. So definitely challenging for us, but certainly, you know, would ask the council to consider that 5-year extension as part of it.
Okay. All right. And that's what I assumed that when we were having this discussion, that was going to be a part of it. And I feel confident after talking with you and staff and everybody that this is something I feel comfortable with as the mayor. Now, obviously, all of you have a say in this. So how do all of you feel about that extension on their contract? We can give them something to go forward with, because I understand the assets they're taking on.
My whole thought process, you know, from the last meeting to this one was, you know, expecting that us giving them that 5-year extension. So.
Okay, good. Jonathan, I know you had a question about that, so.
No, I'm just trying to understand how we went around it. I do get that there's the not involving us third party wise in this details of the sale and stuff like that. I totally get that we want to insulate ourselves from that, but in the sense of not leaving things unanswered, right? Which is why we're here tonight. We had a special meeting for this purpose, and I'd be curious or willing to anyway, if the rest of the council is, to discuss that option. If it's recommended by Peter that if there's a way that we can see this through and protect ourselves legally speaking.
To be completely candid, one of my goals going in was to keep this as simple as possible.
Yeah.
As clean as possible. I'm not saying that there would be litigation in the future between Mark and the personal representative or her representation or whatever. It's not my place to say what claims might be out there or what could be or not be, or what someone should have done or shouldn't have done, or what's reasonable versus unreasonable. But it has occurred to me that there could be some different claims out there. I mean, you guys were in the same room that not every time we had a meeting, but you were in the room for the council meetings where the parties came up and did stuff. So I want to keep us out of that. I just, if Melanie or I have to be a witness, or if, you know, whoever it is, in something, and I'm not even saying that something would happen, I don't know. But it seemed to me that the more complicated we made this, the higher that there would be some likelihood of, whether it's with the valuation or how much value is diminished as a result of what someone did or didn't do, or whether it was anything else. I'm not going to speak to any of that. I just wanted to keep it as clean and simple as possible. As I've said, we have a great relationship with Josh, and he's been super transparent with us. My other thought is that these customers don't have any experience with Arrow, the customers they're going to get. And so it kind of, again, I'm trying to think of all the optics of this. It's like they get the franchise, and then we're giving them 5 years for people that never worked with them and don't know them. So I think that there's some different reasons why, you know, I just wanted to keep it clean and simple. I assume they do a great job. After 3 months, we could sit down with them. That would be a different process. Have a conversation, look at rates, what those would be, what our options are. So ideally, those are the reasons that I wanted to keep it simple. I understand if council wants to extend it at this time, and I'm not going to suggest that you, I don't have strong feelings. I just, again, I wanted to keep it clean and simple.
I respect that about you, Peter, the fact that you're protecting us on that end of it. I really do, because I think that's very important. But at the same time, I've dealt with Arrow in the past, many, many years ago, on another property that I owned. And they've always been exceptionary. I mean, they've always done a great job, and I feel confident as a company that they can deal with this and give us what we're looking for in the future. Therefore, I feel confident that extending their franchise is something I think we could do safely and without concern that it may not work. I feel they're very competent. So my preference would be that we give them that, because knowing that they're taking on this risk, purchasing a company with all that it has, you know, and wanting to know if they've got the franchise extension. I get that, being a person who's worked for many companies, so I know what they're looking for here. And I feel confident that we could probably give it to them tonight safely. Period.
So, this is just me throwing this out there. So if we don't extend their franchise tonight, this is something that we could, I mean, we're overdue for having a conversation with them for 2 years about a franchise extension. And, you know, as we said, so if we don't agree to extend the franchise tonight, can we make this an agenda item for one of the first couple months of the year, either February meeting or March meeting, and
Yeah, I mean,
and actually have that discussion that was overdue, that they put off, or they let us put off because of the situation the other company was in. I mean, it was gracious of them to do that. So
Mike, did you have something to add?
What assets are you purchasing?
All of their trucks, all of their containers, and all of their carts.
How many trucks is it?
4.
4
4
trucks,
total.
containers, and what else?
Carts, so all the residential carts and containers at the businesses as well.
Are you purchasing those if you get awarded their area without an extension?
Well, that's our ask, is that we do the extension as part of it. Again, and I
If
think
you weren't, if we were to put it off and revisit it in February, would you purchase the property? Can you perform for the city of Estacada without those assets?
it would be very challenging to do that without those assets. Lead times for carts and containers these days are anywhere from 45 to 55, 60 days. We don't have that inventory sitting in our yard to just deliver and start the service.
So it might be a disruption in service
Yeah.
to people, right?
And you know, I would say too, I think, you know, since this process began, and I've been very close to it with the family as well, you know, as I've alluded to before, you know, we want to help. We feel like this is a win-win-win for us, for the city, as well as the Walker family, specifically Mark. So as far as, you know, our performance in the city, I would like to say that we have many, many different jurisdictional franchises throughout this area. And would be willing to give references or speak to other community members or the county or anybody that does business with us. So I think I understand that concern of the new customer base, but I feel like we've proven ourselves here in the community as well. We were successfully executing our franchise prior to any of this, right? We didn't do anything to get us here. So, yeah.
Melanie, you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the situation of like whether it's a known or unknown entity. If we were having to bring in a brand new company that we'd never worked with before and they were going to come in and assume a franchise, I would be very hesitant to give an extended period, not knowing how that would go. But Arrow has been operating in the city of Estacada since the property started annexing in, going north. They started bringing in more and more customers that were inside city limits as the city limits grew. And we have never had any issues with their service. They've been great at helping with the yard debris. I mean, like when we have that annual cleanup day, they've been a big part of that. And carrying kind of a lot of the burden of bringing out all the big containers because they're the ones that have them, you know, getting them filled up, taking them in, bringing them back because more and more people were coming to drop off stuff. When we wanted to do the kind of interim yard debris solution and we had some, the big drop off boxes out at the portal, they've helped us out with that. And then we've also switched our process at the wastewater treatment plant where we're having the biosolids are being dehydrated and they have to be hauled to a landfill. So we were able to incorporate that into the franchise and they're able to do that. So pretty much anything that we've been able to needed a service of Arrow has been able to do that. And Josh has really figured out how to make it happen. And so I'm not concerned like I would be if it was a brand new company coming in or somebody that we didn't have experience with. So it's up to you, but I just thought I'd throw that out there because that's been my experience.
And it all comes down to you. So, I mean, if you've got any questions, now's the time to ask them. But at the same time, like I said, I feel confident. Mike,
Peter, if it's an asset purchase, assets can't be inflated by a contract, is my thinking behind it. Like if you're buying a truck
Right, yeah.
and whether that truck has a work to do or not, the truck's worth what the truck's worth,
Right.
then awarding an extension on the franchise, it's a plus for that company, but it's not going to change the value of the asset. Is there a different price if you purchase the assets, if you get the franchise agreement than if you don't get the extension?
Well, yeah, and thank you for asking that. The way we looked at this deal was looking at it with that extension. So if the extension wasn't not to be approved, or there's more concern from the council, we would have to go back and look at that and see what that looks like. The way we evaluated the business was based on that 5-year extension with the asset purchase, right? And then our returns as well going into the rest of that term of the franchise agreement. So, you know, we would have to go back and really look at it again to see if it makes sense. So I hopefully you understand that. And
So the way that I look at it is so that garbage can sitting in their yard is only worth what that garbage can is worth. But that garbage can sitting in the yard sitting in my yard, getting filled up every week and getting picked up, it's got a lot more value than it does sitting in their yard. So that's the way that it worked in my brain.
I think you have anything to add?
I am 100% comfortable going forward tonight.
I mean, is there any room to talk here? Can we meet in the middle? Maybe like 7 years or something like that? One contract, like we're saying for Glenn. So maybe I guess my question would be, is there a way that we could prepare that in a sense that we do take your suggestion and terminate the original, amend Walker's with an extension to say 7 years, but with the map indexed, it'd be the same thing, but packaged a little bit differently, right?
I mean, you can apply whatever extension you want to the franchise. I think the reason for the 5 years is because that language was in it. I mean, it was anticipated that in year 5, we have like an off ramp that we could use, or we could re-up if everything was going super smoothly. And that was a year and a half ago. Yeah, I mean, I'm torn about it because it is an asset purchase. I mean, if the purchase was for the franchise, then the term of the franchise would absolutely impact the value of the franchise. I mean, it's much more valuable in year 1 than it is in year 9. With that said, I also understand the argument that having the continuity of having all the assets in people's yards, trucks that are already equipped to pick those up, and move the waste to recycling or whatever it is, that there's probably some value in that. So again, like, the way I view everything for you guys is through the lens of legal risk. And what I can tell you is that there's less legal risk in doing this tonight, and then in February having a conversation about whether we want to do an extension. With that said, I can understand that people want certainty and continuity. So they're, as I said when Josh first brought this up, I'm not mad at you for asking, but I am not completely pleased that you're complicating what was a really clean deal and is now less clean. And he was super gracious about that, because that's the kind of guy he is. But yeah, it was an unanticipated complication, and I don't like this.
I prefer to keep it the way Peter said, to keep it clean. I have no problem revisiting the franchise agreement. No problem with being on board with giving you guys an extension. I've heard nothing but good things about you guys. But if it was clean, if it's cleaner for us from a legal standpoint to cut it off, you guys can acquire the assets, and then in February we can deal with the extension. It sounds like you know how the whole council feels about the extension. And if it's cleaner and easier for us legally, so that we're not exposed to any extra risk, I think you know how everyone's thinking already. That's my thought. But that's just my feeling on it.
Can I please address one thing, if you don't mind? Our intent wasn't to complicate things, Peter and the council. I would like to clarify that, once we signed paperwork with the Walkers to discuss this transaction, we did move rapidly. I know Peter had made a comment at the last meeting that he wished he would have known 4 weeks prior, and I totally understand that. We moved as quickly as we could. The holdup on the extension ask wasn't because we were holding anything back or trying to pigeonhole the council by any means, or get us into a more challenging position. So I just want to make that clear. The timing of it has been difficult. And here we are faced with, if we do go forward in, a short amount of time, in a few days, we have a big task ahead of us to take this on and be effective and safe doing so. So I just wanted to clarify that certainly that was never our intent to do anything. We made an offer very quickly after I personally went and looked at their trucks and met with them. So.
Paul?
So if we break this down, though, sounds like the first motion we have tonight would be to terminate the franchise agreement with Walker. Is that correct? What happens then?
Well, then we can assign it to whomever, and the entity that it could be most readily assigned to is Arrow, because we already have a franchise agreement in place with them. And so the simplest way to do that would be to instruct staff to do a map amendment of the service area, so that then their map reflects their map and Walker's map.
But didn't Josh, didn't you just say you would struggle servicing that currently? Or no?
No, not if we purchase the assets and move forward, no. I think I referenced if we were to take it over without buying their assets.
If
So-
their assets were left out, could they perform?
But for the sense of using it, right? Like, so if we terminate this tonight, that's what I'm saying, in January, they have enough to be able, they're gonna use their assets without a purchase agreement. Is that what I'm,
No,
I just,
there
there seems like a lot of like good faith there for our citizens. That's what
Well,
I'm
and-
asking.
And
I
that was
want,
my argument with this. They're taking on a lot of risk under the assumption that we're gonna come back in 3 months and agree to the franchise or not agree. Being a person who worked for large companies, that's a big risk to take because they're pulling all the risk, not us. And I get that. I get that. So, giving Josh that okay, that yes, we will extend this is what they're looking for here. They're gonna have to make a choice. They're gonna have to take this equipment, they're gonna have to get out there, they're gonna have to get on the way to our houses, pick up this garbage, do all this, make sure this happens without question, under the assumption that in 3 months after we figure out all the legal risk and everything, we come back here and say, okay, we'll give you the franchise or not. If I'm that company, I'm not gonna do it in the 3-month window. Because I don't know. I'm going forward on a very big purchase with money on the table to buy out a company, not knowing in 3 months whether some of us decide no and some of us decide yes. That's too much risk. Too much risk for any company to take on. So I understand where he's coming from in this. I think we feel confident enough. I know we do by the questions you've asked, that we can give them that assurance that that franchise agreement, will it be extended to accommodate that? And therefore, it's giving them the confidence, knowing going forward that they've made the right choice with their finance. So that's just what I'm arguing in this table right now, because I get where he's coming from in this. So I think we could, definitely hone this down and say, okay, we agree to that. We can come back to the table and get the details tuned in, but give him the assurance for him to go back with his people and say, yes, we have this extension.
but how do we do that and give them something that they're comfortable with, that's enough for them to make a purchase? I mean,
Well,
that's
we would just reference that clause in the franchise agreement and saying that we're electing to extend the franchise for 5 years under that clause. So actually, the good news is that you can instruct staff to adopt a new map with them, and you can say that you want to extend it for 5 years. And those are our marching orders, if that's what you want to do.
And then we'd bring back an ordinance that encapsulates that, because I think would that be Sadie, who is our expert of
I was-
ordinances and resolutions
I
to,
was thinking that it would have to come back in an ordinance form, but if Peter's saying that they can just direct us to make that modification to the existing.
to the existing.
I think
ordinance.
we'd want to do it via a resolution because we'd want to have it go into effect immediately. So, the problem with the ordinances is unless we pass them on an emergency basis, it takes 30 days. And because we have a new, a potential city councilor who might not be seated. Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to do it, I think, and I didn't disagree with anything the mayor said. Again, like my role is kind of advise you guys on legal risks so you can make an informed decision. So,
To give us
right,
direction.
so if
and
you want to,
We'd bring back a resolution
if-
to affirm that.
yeah, so we could basically contract with them. You could instruct us to prepare a resolution for the mayor's review and signature and city managers, and then we could do everything and get that done.
I feel confident in that. I don't know how you all feel, but I'm very comfortable with this company and their decision to go forward and what they're doing to help the existing company, have something to retire on and feel comfortable with. And they've all worked very hard. And I feel confident with Peter on our side that he's going to look out for our best interest going forward. So do I hear the same on the table, or has anybody got any?
I think so too. I don't know. I really don't know what 2 months would get us, if we were to hold off that way. And then I think my concern isn't so much the contract. My concern is disruption of service for the folks in Estacada. That's what I want to see come through here.
Yeah.
Is that this can be as seamless as possible.
Any legal benefit to doing them in separate motions? Peter?
I don't, I think we'd want one motion to terminate the franchise and then another motion for us to, amend the map and, include the 5-year contractual language, and we can handle that. If for the mayor's signature, review and signature, so it can happen before the,
What would that
And
put
it
us
is-
at year wise?
9 total. Well, eight and a half, right? That puts us at 8.5 more years with Arrow.
Yes, approximately. So I would, the end of the franchise, I was looking at the current one would end in September of 28. So 5 years under that be September 1 of 2023.
Okay.
I move to terminate the water
33.
disposal.
We have to
Let's go out of
close
public
the.
hearing
yeah.
first. So let me go out
Oh.
of public
All right,
hearing.
my bad.
Does
Was there
any
any,
member,
was there any public? Yeah, I guess.
yeah, does any member of the public wish to speak before we move on here? No? Okay. Do I have any online?
No.
No. Okay, and staff has no additional questions?
No additional questions.
Okay, at this time, I will close the public hearing and reopen the city council.
I move to terminate the Walker disposal franchise agreement with the city of Estacada.
Second, sorry.
Okay, I have a first and second. Let's do roll call on this, please.
Counselor McElroy,
Yes.
Counselor Metcalf,
Yes.
Counselor Prokop. Yes. Counselor Strobel,
Yes.
Counselor Tenbush,
Unfortunately, yes.
Mayor Drinkline.
Yes, thank you. All right. And now the second part of this.
I move to amend the franchise map with Arrow Sanitary taking over the former zone of Walker disposal and including an extension of 5 years to the franchise agreement.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second that.
First and second. Let's do a roll call on that as well.
Counselor McElroy,
Yes.
Counselor Metcalf,
Yes.
Counselor Prokop. Yes. Counselor Strobel,
Yes.
Counselor Tenbush.
Yes.
Mayor Drinkline.
Yes, thank you very much for that. And I hope you all have a Merry Christmas, and I hope this all works out well. And we'll be talking to you real soon. And to walkers, we will miss you. And we appreciate you, so thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you for many years, many years.
Yep.
You're not, that's true.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
The Walkers and the Ingles, I guess.
To the Walker
Yep.
Company.
All right, to the Walker Company.
Company.
Let's put it that way.
There you go.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving along, we are at the council business.
Yes, we have 2 ordinances on council business tonight. They are regarding zone changes that were previously approved by the council, but the way that we submit those to DLCD is they want to see an ordinance. So this just has already been approved and decided upon by the council. We just need a motion and a second and a vote to pass each of these ordinances so we can send it over to DLCD.
Okay. You heard what it is. Let's hear on the first one, ordinance 2024-010. If you want to take it, anybody?
I move to approve.
Okay. I've got-
Second.
I've got a first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ordinance passes. Thank you.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-011.
Okay.
Second.
A first and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And we have adjournment. There you go.